Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Hello everyone, I thought I would share something that happened to me some time ago. I don't use Reddit much, so I apologize ahead of time. Let me set the stage. I was in one of the big home improvement chain stores. The one with a big blue logo of a house. There are a few people involved, another customer, a manager, a difficult customer, and me. First, I was in a bit of a hurry as I had a pretty busy schedule that day and just wanted to get in and out as quickly as possible. I walked around for what seemed like forever, pacing every aisle. And I could not find what I was looking for. A common water filter, from what I recall. I also did not come across any employees on the floor. The only ones I saw were checking people out. I walked down one aisle and saw a Hispanic man. His race will be relevant later, grabbing some items off the shelf. He was clearly not an employee as he was well dressed in nice jeans and a polo. The only reason he first gave me pause was a radio on his belt, but I quickly figured out it was not one from the store as he used some kind of smartphone-looking radio. In desperation, I thought he might know where my item was. Maybe he had the demeanor of a man who had clearly been in this store a few times. So we began. "Excuse me, sir. I know you don't work here, but by any chance, do you have any idea where the water filters are? They seem to have moved them again, and I cannot locate any employees." The other customer laughed and replied, "I know. I think they only keep one employee at a time to work the entire store. It gets very frustrating. Those corporate folks are always looking for a way to save a buck and kill customer service in the process." "Sad but true," I said. "Yeah, I just picked up some water filters the other day. Let me show you where they moved them to." "Oh, thank you. You really don't have to. Just point me in a direction, and I'm sure I can get it from there." We engaged in small talk as I followed him to the location, and he pointed down the aisle directly at the item. At this point, we were both standing in front of the store facing down the aisle when, from a distance, we heard a woman shouting, "Hey you, Jose, Juan, Carlos." She muttered about half a dozen Spanish names. Neither the other customer nor I realized she was hollering at us. We were just finishing up our conversation. The difficult customer, Karen, was now standing right behind us, practically in the other customer's ear, not more than 2 inches away. "Didn't you hear me holler for you? I need some assistance. Do you speak English?" I turned around to see the typical soccer mom type, dressed like she was about to go out on the town, well, at a place in a hardware store. He told her, "I'm sorry ma'am, I don't work here, but can I help you with something?" Karen, not hearing the "I don't work here" part, went off on a rant. "You lazy people," she said, uttering a few more racial slurs. "I have been hollering for you for a while, and you can help your own kind out, but not if I'm white?" I was confused as I'm white and getting pretty angry at this point, as I had already spent longer than I wanted to and was now dealing with this. "Excuse me, but you need to calm down." The other customer, in a forceful manner, swiped his arm across my chest and pushed me backward in an "I got this" fashion, still playing it all calm, cool, and collected. "I'm sure if you can calm down for 1 minute, we can get this solved. Can you please tell me about your problem?" Karen continued her rant. "My problem is all you lazy people taking all the jobs and not wanting to work. Where is your manager?" I muttered under my breath, still audible, "Which?" Karen lunged for me and slapped me across the face. The other customer, like some kind of ninja, grabbed Karen's arm, spun her around so fast, and all I saw was her face planted on the floor with a knee in her back. While holding one of Karen's arms, he grabbed his radio and made a call requesting an officer to our location. The manager came running to see what all the fuss was about, screaming, "Get off that lady right now. We have called the cops." The other customer, by this time, had already put away his radio and had his badge in his hand, flashing it to the manager. "I have already called for a car." He looked at me with one of those "please say yes" looks. "Would you like to press charges?" "Of course I do," I said, rubbing my face. I'm not kidding, I have not been hit that hard in years. I swear I saw stars. The other customer slowly got Karen back to her feet, and by this point, she knew she had messed up badly as she... The other customer slowly got Karen back to her feet, and by this point, she knew she had messed up badly as she just stood there and did not say a word. The manager asked me, "Can you tell me what happened?" And the other customer told the whole story. A few minutes later, the patrol car arrived, and the other customer, the manager, Karen, and the officer moved outside the store. I stayed back and decided to go grab my filters while they sorted it all out. As I walked out of the store, I saw Karen being loaded into the back of the car in handcuffs. Let me tell you, that was very satisfying to see. The other customer had me sign some paperwork, and when he noticed my last name, we found out he was good friends with a lot of my family. When this happened, I was in the bathroom while my mom dealt with a difficult customer. So this is more her story than mine. I was transitioning from high school to college, and after saving up money all senior year, I went on a mass shopping spree. My mom had just gotten off a case, so she decided to come with me. She is a behavior correctionist for high schoolers, dealing with kids who are violent towards others. This means she needs to have submission techniques like Jiujitsu and so on. This is important later. We did our shopping and got a small TV, a nice laptop, and other assorted stuff. We checked out our items, and I excused myself to the restroom. According to Mom, she sat there for about 2 minutes before a lady appeared before her. Karen said to Mom, "Oh, thank you. You found my cart." "What?" Mom asked. "You found all the shopping I had done. Thank you so much." "I believe this is mine, actually. Sorry." Karen put her hands on the cart. "Oh, don't be sorry for your mistake. This is just my little kid's new computer. I just bought it for him." "Sorry, this is mine. Your cart must be somewhere else." My mom started walking away, and then Karen went crazy. "Help! She's stealing my cart! Stop her!" The nearest cashier looked over and said, "Ma'am, calm down. You're mistaken. I just checked it out. It's her cart." My mom took out the receipt to show the lady, and at that moment, Karen grabbed the cart and booked it for the door. My mom chased after her like she does with high schoolers. She grabbed Karen by the arm and stopped her just as Karen pulled out pepper spray. My mom, having had kids pull knives on her, applied pressure to that arm and put her in a submission hold. The cashier apparently called the police, and my mom kept Karen there until they came. When I came out of the bathroom, I saw the police taking statements from everyone and a lady in handcuffs screaming about her children. I asked Mom what happened here, and Mom, out of breath from holding a long submission, said, "I'll tell you later." That was 2 years ago, and whenever my mom tells it, it's still hilarious. The cast of this story is me, a 35-year-old female, my future husband, a 45-year-old male, my entitled mother, a 55-year-old female, and my entitled grandmother, an 80-year-old female. Backstory: my mom abused and allowed me to be abused by her various boyfriends and husbands, so I was raised by her mother, my grandma. She disappeared entirely when I was 9, and we were no contact until I was 17, other than a few letters. She disappeared entirely when I was 9, and we were no contact until I was 17, other than a few letters. Buckle up, this is a long one. My future husband and I are getting married in June. He is half Scottish and half Indian, and thus does not look white. Obviously, the half of his family that is Indian also does not look white. My grandma disapproves of this. She says that good Irish Catholic girls don't marry people who are not white. I have repeatedly tried to explain that Indians are not Arabs and that he's not Muslim. She has used racial slurs to his face, calling him things like terrorist and other offensive terms. She has said things to him like his family will never get through customs and asked if he planned on blowing up anything at the wedding. She has begun quoting the movie Not Without My Daughter to me. For those who are not familiar with it, an American woman is trapped in Iraq by her Muslim husband. I have explained that India is a democracy and that will never happen. Also, my husband was born and raised in northern Scotland. His family was the only mixed-race family, and there was a lot of racism. Despite the fact that he's a great guy with a good job who treats me well, he is not white, and that's all she needs to know. I have told her that since there is no chance she will behave on my wedding, she is not invited. Enter my entitled mom. She's on grandma's side despite the fact that they hate each other. I have told my entitled mom that I refuse to subject my new in-laws and husband to that kind of treatment. She said there was nothing I could do to stop her and grandma from coming, so I had better accept that fact. She says she must act quickly to fix the mistakes I've made in my wedding planning. My husband wanted me to wear a traditional Indian sari for the wedding, but I wanted a white dress. We came to a compromise that I would wear a white dress, a replica of the one Cate Blanchett wore in Lord of the Rings, as a homage to the fact that my husband and I met on a Lord of the Rings tour in New Zealand for the actual ceremony, and a sari for the reception and other parties. My entitled mother has said that since I have recently discovered I'm pregnant, a white dress would be inappropriate, and the sari handmade by my future mother-in-law would definitely not be happening. She has tried to cancel my venue in order to find a more appropriate one. By appropriate, she means a church, even though neither my future husband nor I are religious. My entitled mother has said my decor is tacky because I have tried to integrate some of the lovely, colorful elements of the traditional Indian wedding, including a mandap, an Indian marquee that you get married under. She says we have to dispense with the burning of the herbs and the rice in the sacred fire of the mandap. The traditional basket of gifts given to the bride by the groom's parents, the groom's procession, and the Sangeet, a pre-wedding event where people get together to dance and sing, are also scrapped. She says, whoever heard of carnations at a wedding rather than roses? And you can't have Indian dishes in a wedding buffet. The place will reek. I have told her that I have been planning this wedding for a year, and I'm quite happy with the way things have been arranged. Under no circumstances will I be changing. This is my day and I will be arranging things. You will look back and be ashamed of your wedding. This is my day and I will be arranging things. You will look back and be ashamed of your wedding. She said that. I reminded her that this day is not about her. It's about me and my future husband. I also reminded her that she's been married 4 times and worn a white dress all 4 times. I have told her that if she has such an objection to my plans or the day, she is welcome not to attend. She lost it and said that she and Grandma had a right to be there, and I was an ungrateful brat for not letting her have her way. I've had to password protect all my vendors so that she cannot make changes without my knowledge. I have been in no contact with her since, but tonight, it was leaked to her by another family member that if my baby is a girl, her name will be Adira Bryn. Mom and Grandma have texted me, emailed me, direct messaged me, and left voicemails totaling around 250 messages saying that I cannot give her such an Indian name. The name is not even Indian, it's Scottish. The messages are still coming in, but I have shut off my phone. A family member who let it slip has called me to profusely apologize. He has let me know that Mom and Grandma intend to turn up uninvited at the wedding and cause a scene. I guess I need extra security, and I will definitely get it. I live in the UK, and both my parents are foreign. My dad is Spanish, and my mom is from the Czech Republic. My dad is pharmacist. One day he came home from work and at a dinner told us about his day. This is what happened. He was working at Boots at the pharmacy. The store he was in also sold beauty products, some food and some hygiene stuff, as well as drugs and prescriptions. At some point in the day, he saw a shady-looking man who he could tell was hiding something in his jacket. He did not really specify how he could tell, but somehow he could. He and his co-worker stopped the man and questioned him. The man, of course, denied it. He eventually said that all he had on him was a sandwich that he apparently bought the day before. My dad and his co-worker were not having it, so they started to escort him out of the store. I mean, what was he expecting? Why would he buy a sandwich one day and then the next day go back into the store he bought it in, with it, untouched and tucked into his jacket? My dad and his co-worker knew it was stolen. My dad was the one to escort him, with his co-worker taking over the pharmacy desk while he did so. They were going to let this guy off and just ban him from the store without getting the police involved. But this guy had to get a bit too confident with what he said. As expected, the man was spouting off some nonsense and insulting my dad. Still, my dad put up with it and didn't change his mind about letting this guy off the hook until he said a phrase my father has heard so many times in his life that he doesn't care about it anymore. You see, on the name tags at booths, they have the name of the person and little flags to signify their nationality. This man looked at the name tag, saw it had little Spanish flags on it, and said, "Go back to your country." Of course, my dad didn't care, but since it was a hate crime, he still had to tell the police. He told the police after the guy was out of the store. As I said, he's immune to that insult. This ended with him giving a description of the man. Later that day, the man was found by a police officer and was also found to be stealing razor blades. Since these are weapons, it is even worse to steal them than a 1-pound sandwich. I assume the way my dad found out about this was that the guy had to return to the pharmacy to give them back. He did not specify much in the story, so the man ended up being charged with a theft of razor blades and a hate crime. He would have gone away with a ban from the store, but no, he just had to run his mouth and get himself into even bigger trouble. And all for a 1-pound sandwich. This is my second story. Since the first one was much more appreciated than I could have hoped, I began looking into old anecdotes and remembered this gem from 2011. Again, a small preemptive excuse since English is not my first language, sadly or luckily. I don't remember any more stories that fit this particular sub. That said, here we go. At that time, I was 26, just out of university with my degree and master's both completed by December 2010. Almost immediately, I went into a big engineering company specializing in tall buildings. I was still green with little to no experience in the real world. And by nature, I am also evasive when it comes to conflict. So I am not exactly the wise choice when it comes to clashing against aggressive or too dominant people. Still, I was able to fake confidence and was capable enough to quickly gain the trust of clients. Because of that, I was already managing projects with some degree of autonomy 6 months into the job. That said, it was November, already very warm weather, chilly, so yeah, summer in November, and the office was working at its usual pace, calm but 2 steps away from total panic. It was morning when my boss called me. Let's call him Ray. He's a great guy, professional, but often a bit dense when it comes to social cues. To this day, we're still good friends despite both of us not working there anymore. When I arrived at his desk, he pulled out a set of schematics. "Hey, I have a meeting this afternoon with this particular client, but I cannot go. They have some issues, so it's important that someone from the office is there if things get difficult." "Difficult?" I asked. "Yeah, they screwed up and want to blame us. Still, everything is in the drawings. You shouldn't have any issues." "Sure, I'll take it." The meeting time came and I got out of the taxi in front of this 22-story office building. The lobby was already finished with floors of black marble and a roof in white marble with diffuse white lighting. There were round double-height columns in stainless steel. As I entered, something caught my attention. There were scratches on the floor. Oh, also on the columns. Heck, also on the doors. This was bad. These were telltale signs of horrible construction management. I took the stairs to the 4th floor where the construction auditor Phil received me. He was a large guy with a short beard and a stern but amicable face. "So, your ex? What happened to Ray?" Phil asked. "Hi, yes, he sent me to be in his place." "Well, we are about to start. Just sit by my side and don't intervene unless it's necessary." "Anything I need to know?" I asked. He smiled back at me with a grin and said, "Just wait and enjoy." So we entered this large improvised meeting room. There was electricity, but the floor was still bare concrete, and the doors were temporary. The table was enough for maybe 20 people. In the corner, there was a small guy with a curved back and a sketchy appearance. He could be described as a weasel in office attire. No one paid any attention to my presence as everyone was taking seats. I sat beside Phil, near the middle of the table. The weasel was on the far head and the closest head was still empty. That guy is a construction manager. He's blaming us for the screw-up, Phil said, pointing at the weasel. We waited for maybe 5 minutes with only a rumor of small conversations in the place. Finally, the door opened and a peacock-like office guy entered. He wore black trousers, a white and pink vertical striped shirt, and a big golden sunglasses where a helmet should have been. A large golden watch, Kill Bill-sized, completed the image. Sorry I'm late, let's begin the meeting, he announced. I assumed from his commanding tone that he was a representative of the owners. After some minimal greetings to all the people in a room by the architect, he gave the word to the peacock-like guy. I took a glance at Phil, who was expectant, and now the guy raised from the table pointed to the weasel and the party started. Explain to me how you forgot to build doors for the elevator's machine room. We are already delayed a month. You made a mess in the lobby, and now we have to demolish a wall so the elevator people can enter. Okay, sir, the weasel answered. First of all, these changes were asked by you. He asked for the lobby to be left ready while I still had to work with people there. And you have it fully scratched. How is that my responsibility? It turned out Chad and the weasel not only were severely unprofessional, but also hated each other with such passion that they had to be put on opposite sides of the table because more than once they went too close to a fist fight. They discussed, screaming at each other for maybe 5 minutes. Chad was fully aggressive and Red attacking relentlessly. The manager, just as his appearance suggested, sneaked in between all the attacks and deflected responsibilities, blaming everything under the sun. The rest of the assistants were just expecting to let time pass quickly and leave. But Phil was happy. He was one step away from having some popcorn. I leaned to him and whispered, "So they forgot an access for the machine room?" Not only that, but the weasel also declared some construction molds as stolen, and they made an investigation. It turns out they are still inside that closed room. What? I asked a bit louder. Hey kid, Chad addressed me disrespectfully. Shut up. And then he went back to the fight. After some more punches back and forth, the weasel was running out of ways to deflect his mistake. He tried one more. But this wasn't our fault. The door was not in a structural engineer's drawings. He formed a smug smile. Plus, Ray didn't even come to the meeting. If any penalties are to be applied, it should be for them for their incompetence. Boy, that was my cue. I cleared my throat but failed in the first impression, entering in a timid way. Well, shut up, kid. The weasel snapped and looked to Phil. Phil, keep your assistant quiet. I decided to make them understand more clearly. I pulled a set of schematics, letting them fall heavily over the table and catching the attention of both Chad and the weasel. Over the schematics, I put my construction helmet with a logo of the engineering firm. Silence filled the room. If I may, I now spoke in front of a pale weasel and a Chad who was internally debating whether to show shame for calling me a kid or do a victory lap around the weasel. I'm actually a structural engineer from X company, and Ray sent me to represent him because his schedule was full. Mind if we check what appears on the drawings? Here we are. Yes, as you can see, the door is here, and I think this cannot be attributed to confusion from structural design. I agree. Phil commented with a huge smile. The rest of the table tried to hide their amusement. I continued. So that settles it. I can make a procedure here for the demolition and installation of the access. Or if you prefer, I can send it approved by Ray by tomorrow. Everyone was silent in a second of contained storm. But Phil wasn't done yet. He leaned in and put his hands over the table. Now, we need to see what we will do to recover the supposedly stolen equipment that is still trapped inside the machine room. And what will you do about the 2 workers you fired this morning? He looked to the weasel who was just about to melt and escaped by the first crack he could find. Chad now turned into a raging volcano. He was so furious that his blood pressure could have been measured in atmospheres. "You fired people without proof." And then another maybe 5 minutes of berating exploded until the architect, who was supposed to be coordinating the meeting, called a truce so they could advance with the problems of the electric and water crews. Phil and I were dismissed, but while the door was closing, I could hear Chad screaming again. I sighed, relieved. Truth is, I was shaken a little. What a mess. Nah, this was a quiet meeting. Phil said, smiling, "Tell Ray he missed a good one. Pleased to meet you, kid." In the end, the construction was finished with 5 months of delay. Both the Weasel and Chad were fired from their respective companies. Ray just laughed at my story and told me it was good that Chad hadn't tried to punch me because he wanted to fight everyone all the time. I never found those two again, but I found Phil on another project 2 years later. Same mischievous old man. To my luck, to this day, I have never had another meeting like this dreadful one. This happened back in the 90s when I had my second comic store. One afternoon I was in my store going through inventory when a woman walked in. This was unusual back then because, well, it was. She had what would become the Karen cut, wore large rimmed glasses, and a skirt that was a style back then. I figured she might be looking for a gift for her son, so I asked her if I could help her. She asked me if I bought boxes of comics. I told her usually not, unless there was something I could use, but I would take a look. So we went to her car and brought in a couple of long boxes. These hold about 300 unbagged/boarded books, or 250 boarded, and I went through them. They were all bagged and seemed to be in good shape. They were popular books at the time: X-Men, Hulk, Ghost Rider. I thought I could sell them and offered her $100 for the lot, and she accepted. She left and I put the boxes on a table to price them and sort them out. About 20 minutes later, a kid about 12 walked in, looked at the books on the wall, and noticed the boxes. He asked if they were for sale, and I said yes, but they weren't priced out yet, so if there was something he wanted, I'd give him the price then. He started looking through them. After a few seconds, he had a strange look on his face, and I asked him if something was wrong. I'll never forget what he said. "These are my books." I said, "What?" And he repeated it. I asked him if he could verify it, and he said he had a code written on every board and could recite them. I pulled out 5 books at random and he nailed every code. I asked him to describe his mother, and he described the woman that sold me the books. I told him not to worry, he would get them back. I asked for his phone number and called it, placing it on speaker, and waited. After a few rings, she answered, and I responded. "Mrs. Karen, your son is here and informed me that the books you sold me did not belong to you. Will you please come down and give me back the $100? And he can have his books back as I don't buy stolen merchandise." Her response was, "My son is in your store?" She screamed at him to get out of there now and never to set foot in there again. She shrieked that if he ever came in, she would have me arrested. The kid was in tears. All he muttered was, "You stole my books." She continued her rant. "I don't want that nonsense in my house. Get out now." And then she slammed the phone down. I let the kid sit down while I processed what just happened. While this was going on, another kid and his mother saw him and said hello and saw he was crying. They knew him, and the new kid's mother asked what happened, and the kid told her. She was, to say the least, disgusted and said she would take him home and have a few words with his mother. Before he left, I asked him what he wanted to do. He said whatever it takes. I asked, even call the police? He said yes. I said I was going to try one more thing before that. About 7:30 that night I called a number, this was before caller ID, and got the father. I explained what happened that afternoon, and the only thing he said was, "She did what?" I repeated it, and again he said the same. Then Karen realized who he was talking to and started screaming. The father just told her to shut up Then he thanked me and said he would handle it and asked what time I closed. About 15 minutes later, I saw the kid and his father was carrying being dragged along, and she was shrieking so loud the dogs 3 counties away had bleeding ears. He dragged her in and told her to give me back the $100. She yelled but she didn't want that stuff in her house. I wouldn't do it. She said she was going to have me arrested for selling these things to children and how they could let me open in this town. She hated Superman and baseball cards. She broke away from the father and attempted to kick out my showcase. It was only because he managed to grab her collar and yank her back that they weren't smashed. She then tried to shove my computer on the counter, but I managed to stop her. The father gave me back what I paid plus a little extra for all the nonsense and apologized. Karen said she would just set them on fire. The father said no, he was bringing them to his office and would keep them safe from her. He also said he would come with the kid in the future. Now, I found out about the aftermath about 10 years later secondhand, so I can't verify. Karen basically destroyed the relationship and never apologized. After the kid graduated, he joined the army, married, and had a child. He doesn't see her often, but allows contact when the father is there. All over comic books. I have seen worse. Now, there are those who are probably asking why didn't I ask her if they were hers. I didn't think of it. But since then, when a woman says she has comics to sell, I ask, are they yours? Out of all the times, at least 50 in the last 10 years, only one said they were hers. I then ask, do you have the owner's permission? Never a yes. I tell them I don't accept stolen property. One of these was quite entertaining. At a flea market I used to go to, a woman walked to my booth and asked me if I bought comics. I asked her, are they yours? And she said no. I then asked if she had permission, and again, she said no. I asked why she wanted to sell them, and her reason was, he's too old to be reading comics. He was 37. I said, ma'am, I'm 49 at the time, and I read comics. A guy looking through my books said, ma'am, I'm 72, and I read comics. She huffed that we were immature idiots. The guy said, at least I'm not stealing my son's books. Have a nice day. This is not the worst incident I have had, but is in the top 20.